year is 1625. An Italian nobleman named Pietro della Valle is making his way through one of the most dangerous regions on Earth. He's traveled through Asia, Africa, and India. He married an Assyrian Christian woman in Damascus, and together they ride through the desert on camelback, guided by two local escorts. The Ottoman and Persian empires are at war. Bandits roam the roads. In those days, even lions still prowled these hills. On the 18th of June, 1625, Della Valle's guides spotted something in the distance. A group of tribal horsemen, far on the horizon, but close enough to be a threat. The guides made a quick decision. They needed to get off the road. They needed to hide. And then, shimmering through the heat haze, they saw something on the horizon that would change history. In the far distance, rising from the flat desert floor, was a massive collection of crumbling ruins. As Della Valle would later write in his memoirs, being suspicious of some Arab Bedouins, and for reasons of security, we took a longer road and made our camp at the foot of some hills, beside certain ancient ruins we had seen from a distance. They had no idea what they had found. For several days, while his guides negotiated with local authorities for safe passage, Della Valle spent his hours walking alone through these enormous ruins. He wrote, "I went at dawn to get a better view of the ruins, said to be very ancient. What they were, I cannot understand, but I found them built of good stone, and most of the stones were inscribed with unknown letters of great antiquity. I noticed they were bound together not with lime, but with bitumen, with pitch and tar." To understand where this civilization came from, we need to travel north, to the southeastern highlands of Turkey, where a chain of limestone peaks rises 3,000 meters above the plains below. These are the Taurus Mountains. They rise so sharply that storm clouds struggle to pass through them. Spring rains pour into mountain streams. Summer thunderstorms echo between the rocks. And from this violence of weather, an entire landscape of water is born. The rivers that form on the slopes of the Taurus don't travel alone for long. They join the flows already coming down from the snowy passes of Armenia and Kurdistan, and together they flow out of the mountains onto the vast, flat plains below. Two great rivers, running parallel for nearly 2,000 kilometers. The ancient Greeks called this place Mesopotamia. Mesos, the middle. Potamos, the river. The land between the rivers. Today, we call it Iraq. The life that these rivers carry south doesn't come from the water itself. It comes from something far less obvious, from the mountains themselves. Most rock is held together by tiny patches of two minerals, quartz and feldspar. When rivers cut through mountain gorges, the water dissolves what it can. But quartz and feldspar don't dissolve. Instead, they're carried downstream as a cloud of glittering particles. We call this material silt. Sometimes it's called by a more poetic name, rock flour, and its particles are smaller than a grain of sand. Silt does something remarkable to soil. It helps it hold water. It improves air circulation. It creates, in other words, the perfect growing medium for almost any plant. Every year, the Tigris and the Euphrates carry enormous quantities of silt down onto the lowlands of Iraq. And as a result, this flat, barren stretch of desert becomes extraordinarily fertile. For the history of this region, and for the history of all humanity, these tiny particles would prove to be of immeasurable importance. But here's the paradox. Apart from its rich silt soil, the southern plains of Iraq are about as inhospitable as anywhere on Earth. Summer temperatures can exceed 52 degrees Celsius. That's 126 degrees Fahrenheit. Rainfall is rare. The winds are brutal. The floods are unpredictable. There are no trees, no stone, no metal. And yet, This is exactly where one of the greatest civilizations in human history was born. This is Sumer. And this is where life as we know it truly began.
But here's the paradox. Apart from its rich silt soil, the southern plains of Iraq are about as inhospitable as anywhere on Earth. Summer temperatures can exceed 52 degrees Celsius. That's 126 degrees Fahrenheit. Rainfall is rare. The winds are brutal. The floods are unpredictable. There are no trees, no stone, no metal. And yet, this is exactly where one of the greatest civilizations in human history was born. This is Sumer. And this is where life as we know it truly began. In the end, the negotiations with the local commander failed. It was no longer safe to stay. So under cover of darkness, Della Valle's party broke camp and fled into the desert, riding hard through the night in search of safety. But in Della Valle's bag, he carried something with him, a handful of clay tablets he had gathered from the scattered ruins of Ur. They were the first examples a European had ever seen of a language that had been dead and forgotten for thousands of years.
Pass in moments.